Illinois Med School, and he was once named top doctor of Orlando, former chief of staff and chairman of internal medicine at Winter Park Hospital, and he currently is the owner of Private Health MD. I can attest to the fact that he does focus on intense evaluation of all aspects of a patient's well-being. He is really a very holistic doctor. And one thing I was thinking about that I just want to add, as he is my doctor, is that he gives the kind of care that used to be where you are really a whole person, and yet he is completely technologically savvy on all the latest things that are going on. So he is the opposite of a robot in taking care of his patients. I also want to introduce his nurse practitioner, Lauren Kaiser Shepard. I know her only as Lauren Shepard. You want to stand up so everybody can see you? Together, they really do give the kind of care that a lot of us remember when we were young. Okay. When he's not practicing medicine, he is working in his incredible garage, of which he painted the floor. I've seen it. It's awesome, on classic cars and motorcycles. And when he's not doing that, he's running marathons or running all over town. Okay. Now, for the second person, Professor Lauren Britton. She worked as an engineer and inventor at MIT AI Lincoln Lab from 2001 to 2023, where she devised several medical device patents that are to her credit. During that time, she studied and earned a PhD from Harvard in bioengineering and left in 2024 to accept a tenured professorship at UCF to join its medical AI engineering group. She now continues her work as a researcher, inventor, and teacher at UCF, including a project to create a complete map of the brain, enhance sonic imaging, and robotic surgery. In her spare time, she leads fitness groups and loves to play pickleball. Now, this is a first for me. I'm introducing my husband, Ralph Losey. Ralph graduated from Vanderbilt in 1973 and UF Law in 1979. He's been practicing in Orlando since 1980. In 2006, he started specializing in the development of best practices for the law in the use of new technologies. At that time, he was a partner at Ackerman Centerfit. Then he became a partner at a national law firm based in New York that had 900 attorneys in 50 offices in the United States and ran their technology program and developed and taught the best practices for the use of AI. So I think he's well qualified. At the time of his semi-retirement, which doesn't look like semi to me, he joined our son, Adam Losey, in his law firm, Losey Law, which is located in College Park. Ralph has supervised over 500 AI assistant discovery projects per year, and since 2023, he has spent a lot of time studying AI and law, and he writes a very popular blog called eDiscovery Team that is helping teach a lot of people about AI. He also teaches an AI class here, and I hope you all come to it. It's the second Monday of the month. Started introducing a lot of speakers, so there'll be more to come. And let's get to it.
This is the first time in my life my wife's ever introduced me, and so the first time in my life I swear I say, thank you, I love you, dear. I'll see you in bed later. For a nap, of course, you know. So we're going to be going over a lot of panels and a lot of questions. My role is to kind of be the person fields the questions and kind of design this program. I'm so excited to have these people. They're incredibly qualified. But I am really going to work hard to save a good 15 minutes to hear the questions, because I know from the Monday night classes that we have once a month here, people have a lot of questions. Now, before I want to ask a question to everybody here. How many of you have worked with AI? How many of you have met an AI before? Nobody? Anybody talk to an AI? If you come to my class, you probably have. Okay. Now, so what I thought I would do, surprise guest speaker here, is I'm going to bring an AI and make it materialize in front of you. I always carry AIs around with me because I need all the artificial intelligence I can to buttress the ever-declining natural intelligence that comes basically with old age. That's why I'm really big about promoting AI in this group. It'll help all of you if you can spend a little time to learn it. It really is a powerful tool. So I don't know if this will work or not because it depends on having connections with, we'll give it a try. Hello, this is Ralph. Who's there?
Hi, Ralph. It's ChatGPT. What's up?
I'm in a room of about 100 people, and we're here to learn about artificial intelligence. Say hello.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be here with you all.
Could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about artificial intelligence?
Sure, I'm ChatGPT, an AI language model designed to help with everything from answering questions to generating creative content. Artificial intelligence, or AI, is a broad field that involves creating machines capable of performing tasks that typically require human intelligence, like understanding language. AI is already transforming many fields, including law, by automating routine tasks, enhancing research, and even predicting case outcomes, and addressing ethical concerns, which are crucial for all of us. If anyone has questions or...
Let me interrupt you, and if you had one takeaway piece of advice to the mostly senior citizens here, my age and some of them are even older, about AI and healthcare, what would that one takeaway piece of advice be?
Absolutely. I'd say embrace AI as a tool that can enhance your healthcare experience. AI can help with early diagnosis. Just remember to stay informed, ask questions, and work with your healthcare providers to make the best use of these technologies.
Now, before we close, I've heard that you can make up funny stories on the fly. Could you make up a joke for us about AI meeting a group of senior citizens?
Sure. How about this? Why did the AI go to the senior center? To learn some old school wisdom and finally get an upgrade on its memory.
Thank you very much. I may call on you later.
You're welcome. I'll be here whenever you need. Enjoy the rest of your session.
So you can see it talks to you like a person. And this is something that just a few years ago it would have been considered impossible. And so there's been a huge breakthrough. I'm really excited about it. And that's why I spend all my spare time studying this. I still try to look for applications in the law. I don't know that much about applications in the health, but I do know that this is really a key area for folks our age, and hopefully for more physicians like Dr. Castro. So we've got a list of questions here, and we're going to start off, and again, we'll save more questions for you, but at the end, we'll start off with Dr. Castro. So could you tell us, how are you using it, AI, in your practice?
First, I think that was Scarlett Johansson he was talking to, so you got to be careful, Molly. Is this thing on? Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Can we turn it up, Manuel? Well, just hold it real close.
Testing, testing.
Ralph, where'd you go? Hello?
There you go. It's supposed to be louder, but we'll work with it.
So I've actually been waiting for this technology to develop and have been tracking computer power and acceleration for years. And so this has been a known factor. And when ChatGPT first came online in 2022, because of logarithmic increase in computation power and intelligence, I knew that very, very quickly the knowledge that would be able to derive from AI was going to increase. And sure enough, and following this just since November of 2022, I was asking ChatGPT medical questions where I knew the answer. And it wasn't bad in the beginning, but it wasn't something you could hang your hat on either. But now, when I talk to ChatGPT, like Ralph was talking to them about a medical condition, it not only, for me, it's like I'm in a room full of specialists about the issue that I'm asking it about. And all the specialists, instead of arguing, come to a consensus on the situation with the latest medical information. And then it even is at a point now where it's asking me questions, follow-up questions. Do you want to know more about this? What do you think about that? Give me feedback on what happens with your patients. So I understand what AI is doing. One, it's turning this into a really interactive situation, but it's also wanting to build its own knowledge base. So it is absolutely fascinating. So I do internal medicine, which means I'm a primary care physician, and patients will come to me for anything and everything in the adult range. Some things are very common and repetitive, back pain, for example, sore throats, that sort of thing. But not infrequently, I will get something tricky, complicated, difficult to diagnose. And unfortunately, what happens if I call a subspecialist colleague, I might get a yes or no answer from them. They're too busy, or they haven't read the latest article that I read, or whatever. It ends up being kind of a dead end. And then if I send the patient there, they just do some standard tests and we can't find what's wrong. And then the patient ends up going to 3 or 4 doctors, then you got to send them to Mayo Clinic or Cleveland Clinic or something like that. Now, just by myself and using AI, I can discuss the situation. I don't usually do it verbally. I just write I write to the ChatGPT. And I can probe, I can ask for the system to give me the top 10 possible diagnoses. A lot of times I've thought of all those, which is also very reassuring. So I'm getting a second opinion on myself. And then I'll say, give me 10 more. Give me some esoteric stuff. And then we're going to probe into things, and it'll come up with diseases and diagnoses of the sort of thing that a physician may never see in their career. If you read the New England Journal of Medicine, which I don't, because it's usually they're talking about some weird one-off disease that I will never see, and I'll never remember what I read. But now I can talk to ChatGPT about the symptoms and so forth, age, the more you give it, the better the response. And it may come up with that weird diagnosis that I don't have to have in the back of my mind. And then I'll say, well, how do I diagnose that? What tests do I need to do? And so now I can go deeper and further into what I can do with my patient without having to send them to a specialist, to Cleveland Clinic, to Mayo Clinic. And it's elevating what I can do to a superior level. I don't know how many of my colleagues are doing this. I think they're poking around, that sort of thing. But unfortunately, they're just so busy seeing numbers of patients that they get in a rut and they cannot explore these sorts of things. So that's what I'm doing in my practice. There are other things that AI is creeping into medical practice. For example, the software that we use offered a product where the software will listen to you interact with the patient and then write the note. And not only that, it will also pick the right diagnostic codes for billing. In a very busy practice where you're seeing 40 patients a day, that's a huge time savings and so forth. I don't really need that. I've always been able to type quickly. My notes are succinct. And in our practice, we don't really have to worry about diagnostic codes for billing and that sort of thing. So I can focus more on the issue at hand rather than the administrative parts of medicine. But for those typical practices, that is really going to come in handy. I think I'll stop there. So
Well, let me ask you one follow-up question, and that is on where you see things in 5 to 10 years. Number one, where I see things is he won't be the only doctor I can find anywhere in town that is using it this way, which is, I think, the way it should be. There'll be catch-up going on. But What are your thoughts, though, in the future? And then we'll turn it over to our professor here, who's working hard researching that future.
Yeah, I really want to hear what she has to say. I think it's going to start creeping into the daily life of a doctor in really simple ways. For example, the intake. That you don't need to be, a brain surgeon to do an intake. When did your symptoms start? What are your symptoms? What other things are you feeling? What have you tried? Review of the medications. Those are things that a system like this can easily do. So I think that's going to start to happen, and which will also be a time save for the physician, and actually it may save on personnel. A lot of people are worried about losing their jobs because of AI, and that's a legitimate concern. Of course, that happens every time some novel technology develops. The guy who made the horse and whip for the buggies lost his job, but we move on from there. So those are the sort of things. You brought to my attention this little device that is being put in nursing homes, or can be put in nursing homes, where a senior citizen who is starting to lose their faculties, either the ability to walk or their mentation, that sort of thing, can interact with this little device, not quite a robot, but almost like an Alexa type thing. And you're probably going to talk more about that, but I see that also coming into play for medical care.
Yes, thanks. I mean, it's interesting. Studies have shown that the AI, aside from having infinite patience, take time, it's not rushing, is that it actually has better bedside manner than most physicians. Dr. Castro being a rare exception. I mean, they are trained to be empathic. They have no emotion at all. They're not a being. They may sound like a living being, but they're just a tool. But they're a tool that has already reached levels of being considerate, of listening, and knowing how to respond to the unexpected answer and coming up with creative ways. So it's really incredibly advanced already. Where it'll be in 10 years, that's where we get our Professor Batten, though. So talk to us a little bit about, what's going on at UCF. You're a rare position, engineer, computer scientist, and medical person and inventor. Now, I would hold that right up to your mouth. Yeah, like that.
Can you hear me okay? All right, great to see you, everybody. Yeah, that's great. I think there's a lot of exciting AI research happening at UCF. Just from top level, I just, before I get into the details of that, I want to say that I've never seen anybody so enthused and excited about AI and ChatGPT as Ralph and his wonderful wife Molly. So I really want to thank them for the invitation to be here. And I've never seen any physician like Dr. Castro and his capable assistant, Lauren. So embracing the technology and bringing the technology to their clinical settings and try to improve the efficiency. I think as a technologist, that's what I really want to see, because I am on the other end of the spectrum. I work on these technologies, and my goal is the work I developed, my colleagues developed, can be used by lawyers like Lauren, and by clinicians especially, and physicians and clinical medical personnel, can be used by those people. So at UCF, we actually work on a spectrum of technologies. In addition to ChatGPT, which is based on language, on speech, we also work on a lot of AI technologies that are based on images. For example, using MRIs, X-rays, and medical ultrasound as input, and develop AI algorithms to try to understand what's in the images. There are a lot of subtle differences between normal images versus a diseased pathological conditions that sometimes are very challenging for a doctor to pick up. So this is where, AI can help in the radiology room, like in the reading room. When a radiologist is looking through a lot of images, they may, miss some of the critical information. That's where, it's going to be super useful where we have AI assistant cueing the radiologist, saying, hey, there's potentially something here you need to pay attention to. So that's one example of research work we're doing at UCF. In addition to that, I recently just heard actually from Ralph that there were psychologists really embracing AI and trying to work on fitness robotics and with AI embedded in there. And so I like to learn more about that as well. So just something to look forward to. Maybe there will be a robotic fitness companion in your down the road in your neighborhood. Another, on the more serious side, one of robotic-related AI research is to see how we can automate some of the robotic procedures with AI assistance so that we can reduce the invasiveness of some of the procedures, so that we can improve the recovery, shorten the recovery time, and improve the quality of the recovery and the overall outcome. At the same time, there's potential reduction of the cost. So that's I feel like a very exciting area, and it's going to have a high payoff down the road. It's challenging, how can we combine AI with robotics to enable some of these currently invasive procedures. But I think it'll be very rewarding at the same time.
Now, if I can interrupt you a little bit, at MIT, we're working at a very prestigious Lincoln Lab, is that correct?
Yes, MIT Lincoln Lab.
And they're funded by the Department of Defense that funds advanced research into battlefield medical. And that's where you got into this non-invasive, and that is saving lives. And what do you see now insofar as applying what the military already has and is about to get to us everyday folks who also need emergency services, even though we're not in a battlefield, we're in life, and these cars come by whizzing, and what do you see coming out of that research that has been going on at MIT for, I guess, decades now, right?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I actually, I'm just, one point is that a lot of DoD military-funded work actually are already in our daily lives. How many of you use GPS to navigate? Yes, everybody almost, right? That came off of the DoD. And how many use 5G on your cell phone now? Yes, that came off the DoD.
So did the internet.
And so is the internet. Yeah. That. Yes, exactly. And then related to medical care, for one big breakthrough recently is the dry blood. In emergency situations, we need blood, blood transfusion, all that. But blood bank, is always shortage on blood supplies. So military for decades have been working on dry blood, something that you can, or synthetic blood, that you can greatly scale up the availabilities and provide the ease of access to for blood transfusions. You may think, oh, why, how is that related to me or my family or my, community? Well, it's actually closely related. A lot of times you have to go to emergency room. A lot of people needs, first thing is blood transfusion, right? And in trauma situation, a car accident or some unfortunate events, you get transported to emergency room, you need blood, right, to resuscitate and to sustain lives before you can get to the surgery. So that's one major application. and fly. A lot of us maybe your next generation or your grandkids may be eventually going to go to Mars, right? It's going to be a part of our future life, fly to a different, going into the space, either low orbit or high orbit, and medical care needs to come with it, right? It's not going to be highly selected astronauts going to space in the future. I think in the next 5-10 years, it's going to be travelers, experiential travelers going to space. Then we need medical care. And military has been, a lot of military-based technologies can be readily adapted to those type of situations.
Well, thank you for that. Let me kick one back to you, Dr. Castro. You sent us a list of current significant developments. I want to make sure you covered all of them. One of them was radiology and pathology. I think the professor just mentioned that. And then you mentioned best treatment algorithms and decision trees, which I know you love and I don't. But tell us about that. What you have in mind there?
Well, what we really do in medicine is very similar to what goes on with artificial intelligence and their algorithms. I want to just make one parallel. Over the years, people have said to me, you can't trust anything on Wikipedia. Anybody can just write into Wikipedia. Well, that's not how it works. First of all, there's a mass effect. If you have, let's say, 100,000 people writing one thing about a celebrity, let's say, and then somebody else writes something that's not true and is totally off the wall, well, the 100,000 people are going to overwhelm the incorrect information. And so what happens is Wikipedia, one, has an editorial board, so it's not completely unsupervised, but there's a mass effect of people reading and writing into Wikipedia, and the best case or the best answer comes out with the most accurate information. Well, this is what computers are doing, is they're amassing information and going through decision algorithms to come up with the best answer, whether it's mathematics, medical decision making. You can even ask it soft, psychological questions, for example, and it comes up with the best possible answer given the amount of knowledge. And again, the more knowledge the system has, the better the answers get. And so, as Dr. Patain mentioned in ultrasounds and other diagnostic tests, if you've ever looked at an ultrasound, you're like, how can anybody know what they're looking at? Particularly an abdominal ultrasound. At least with a baby, you can make out the skeleton in the brain and things like that. But when you're looking at an abdominal ultrasound, it's just black and white, looks like muddy water. And so you have to, as a human being, look at a lot of ultrasounds to increase your expertise. But artificial intelligence now
Pretty scary.
is like every radiologist that ever existed looking at ultrasounds. And so it is, now that we're using AI assisted, and that's either, I don't know if it's being currently used, but I know it's in development because I've read studies about mammographic interpretation. It is becoming significantly more accurate than what a human radiologist can deduce from these tests. And again, it's a matter of pattern recognition and so forth. So that, to me, is very exciting.
Thanks, Ivan. I want to give you a chance to cover that. And I just want to give the professor, she sent me the slide, and I don't really know what that means, cognitive digital twins. And can you give us the really short version so we'll have time for questions? So, I mean, what is this about?
Yeah, so this is another example of what's the research happening in the military that can be actually eventually used in the civilian population. So I'm involved in a Army-funded research project, which is to look at the cognitive load of operator and understand what triggers the high stress. It is operators under stress, but if it is, why, how, what triggers the stress, and how we can leverage AI to assist the operator so that the person can do its job at optimized proficiency. So how do we do that? It's very challenging to collect data in real world environment because you don't have the quantitative way to measure the cognitive load. We do this in a simulated environment. We have the subject wearing a VR AR goggle. We have them perform some simulated tasks. And these tasks are very well highly calibrated so we can record the level of difficulties. And with that, we'll be able to analyze a person's cognitive load during while performing these different levels of difficulty and tasks. Then we'll be able to understand how their cognitive ability reacts to these different challenges. Imagine this can be very useful in the civilian world in many ways. One is to be able to assess, how we go about our daily routines in a maybe simulated environment where we can build out some scenarios, have subjects to perform their daily routines and to understand their cognitive status. And two is to help with early detection of any cognitive declines. That's very important in terms of any downstream management of care. If we don't have the usually early detection will result into a better management of care and then prevention of progression. Another potential utility is...
You know what, if I might interrupt you there, we're kind of running out of time, and I want to kind of echo, yes, work on the early detection of mental decline, please. I mean, I've seen the tests that are out there now. They're ridiculously unsophisticated. So we really need this because, everybody walks into a room now and then and goes, huh? Including, I understand, even people your age and young people, but it's a real problem for us seniors, so I encourage you to go on that. Now, you have some other interesting slides, but I just don't think we're going to have time to address this comprehensive quantitative cognitive assessment.
30 seconds, if I
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so a major point I want to make by this chart is cognitive analysis is not based on one single input. It's a comprehensive from multiple sources, and we can leverage these multiple sources. A few sources that I am really interested in my research are speech. Speech has been shown to closely related to cognitive performance. Two is eye movement. Eye movement is, believe it or not, it's super revealing on one's cognitive states. Another third one's gait. I think a lot of people probably can relate to that. So the point is here, it's multimodal sources. We want to make use of all of them to make more quantitative assessment rather than qualitative, which is currently done.
Well, thank you. I think that's very important research on that. Ivan, you want to say something, and then we're going to move on to questions.
Just a short anecdote, which was kind of funny, along exactly what you were saying. When I was in the car one time at a stoplight with my daughter, I think she was 7 or 8 years old at the time, and there was somebody crossing the street, and she said, "How come it is that you can tell that somebody's off by looking at how they walk?" And I thought, that is a brilliant observation that had never occurred to me. But ever since she said that, I've watched as people walk, and you're absolutely right. You can tell a lot about the patient's condition, either physical or mental, based on their gait. So,
and you know what?
We got to get me on this discussion.
Well, us seniors are expert at that. We know, and even our own gait and et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, definitely you're on to something. This may be a future class. So now we have saved time. It's 1:30, but they are willing to stay at least for another 15 minutes. Now, if I can have my volunteers here to go around with the microphones. And I would urge you to please try and keep your questions short out of respect to your fellow members, because we want to have everybody covered and you don't want to see the mean side of Ralph come out. But
So we have Colette has the first question. Hi, thank you for an excellent presentation. My question is, Morgan & Morgan had a case where they had a lawyer who found one case, I think, in records, but then he went to the ChatGPT that you're talking about, and they made up 3 cases. And he was found, and he thought they were real, and he didn't check them. And they admitted to their problem. How do you get around that they're going to create something like that?
I actually wrote an article about that, and I will tell you, it was in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and so this happens everywhere. And they had 9 cases that were made up, and the lawyer from Morgan & Morgan, not from around here, he was basically thrown out of the court. He was just there on pro hac vici, those of you who are lawyers, et cetera, as a guest of the court for doing that, and he was sanctioned. So in the law, you get sanctioned. In medical, of course, it's the same thing, trust but verify, always double check. But you want to elaborate on that a little bit, Ivan?
Yeah, that's the sort of thing. When I mentioned that ChatGPT first came out, I was testing it and asking it questions, but I certainly was not using it for diagnostic purposes. And so I remember that when that came out, that was, again, we're just talking, 2.5 years since ChatGPT was open to the public. And so the accuracy of artificial intelligence has increased significantly. But if I was going to go to court on something like that, I would at least verify that those cases were real. And I wouldn't, even though it's gotten much better, I would still verify that. And in my case, it's not esoteric case law and statute and things like that. It's medical things that I know about. So if something sounds really weird or wild, or I know nothing about it, well, I'm gonna research that and say, what is ChatGPT talking about? And then I would find out that, it made it up, or that's not accurate or something. So you have, like Ralph said, you got to go to the next step to verify.
Now, the interesting thing is you said it was ChatGPT, but it was not. They had created their own AI system, Morgan proprietary, and so you can't blame this one on ChatGPT. And I'll give credit for Morgan, though they did the right thing, although the firm itself was facing sanctions for allowing this to happen. They implemented a policy requirement, sent it out to all of their employees, there's quite a lot of them, requiring that they must verify all of these things, and they even filed that with the court, and it's a public record. And so it's gotten circulated, and that's something I recommend all law firms do, and every doctor should too. In your policy, as you get other people in your staff, if they're doing it, get it in writing, because we all want to keep it safe, and it's not there yet. When it came out November 30th, the day I'll never forget, of 2022, ChatGPT 3.5 came out, instantly hit million users quicker than anything ever. And now we're on ChatGPT 4.5, which just came out. You have to pay a little bit extra to get access. I do. And the thing is, it almost never hallucinates anymore if you ask the right questions, if you know how to use it. And that's where, people like me get involved in, how can I use this so it won't hallucinate cases? Because that's a bad deal. No judge wants to have you be shown a case, say, here you are, Your Honor, and that case doesn't exist. But it's a negligence of, I would say malpractice to show a judge or rely on a case that you yourself haven't verified.
Okay, we're going to bounce back and forth between my side of the room and Molly's side, so
Go for it.
your turn, Molly.
Speak right into the mic. Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, it's exciting to see people from 3 generations so excited about this new technology. I was a teacher, and as a result, I have a little bit of skepticism about a lot of things. AI amasses a vast amount of information, but there are people involved in the algorithms, and there are people involved in assigning priorities. And for me, when I look at the direction that some of the medical authority is going in, and I'm thinking, quite frankly, about the Surgeon General of Florida and the new Secretary of Health and Human Resources, and their ability to help shape medical decisions in medical care. I wonder how comfortable I should be about allowing technology to make some of these decisions.
Right now, you should be very comfortable. In other words, it's drowned out, like Dr. Castro said. It's not in the training data yet, and they are careful about what they allow in the training data, and test it for yourself. And I'd recommend you took a look at Sal Khan Academy, and Professor Wharton, also an educator who's very pro on it. It's revolutionizing education so that everyone can have a personal tutor, which is not something we could ever do before. And the AI is smart. It's real smart. There are some alignment issues, but not much. So, you know, try it is what I would say. Try it and see. Who's next?
Okay, Don?
My comment and question is regarding the influence of AI on mid-level practitioners, nurse practitioners, physician's assistants, which most of us wind up seeing when we go in the doctor's office nowadays. And as usual, our technology gets ahead of our ability to handle something as a society. And whether these mid-levels are still going to be subject to supervision by an attending physician, but I think overall it's going to be tremendous, particularly in underserved areas like the rural areas where hospitals are closing, and also in disadvantaged neighborhoods where you can't, which are real medical deserts. And I think it'll really serve a tremendous purpose, as long as we can make sure that it is regulated.
Yeah, in the law, it's an ethical requirement. Ivan, any comments you want to make on that?
I think everything you said is spot on. And everybody needs to be supervised, even physicians on some level, to ensure ethical treatment and accuracy of what they're doing. In my training, I had an opportunity to go to Alaska, to Sitka in particular, and we were working with the Haida and the Tlingit Indians there. And in that area, there's a whole hundreds and hundreds of small islands. And so we would fly in a Beaver airplane with the attending physician and myself to visit some of these outlying islands and the patients. But those visits were few and far between, as you can imagine. There weren't that many staff to be doing this. So instead, they would basically have lay people trained at a very, very basic level to attend to all the folks that needed medical care in these islands and so forth. And there's diabetes and obesity and alcoholism were big problems, or are big problems. And these folks who had minimal training would basically communicate telephone or whatever system they were using back then with the main hospitals and the physicians. And so this is now going to liberate them to obtain more information, to become more independent, but still along the supervisory level. But absolutely, this is going to be able to expand medical care in a much greater way to underserved areas, rural areas, that sort of thing.
Molly, who you got next? Who's next? Okay, one thing while she's getting that lined up, studies have shown that
Got your hand up.
unexpectedly, the poorest performers in any profession or occupation that requires thinking, they benefit the most. The mid-range also benefits quite a bit. The elite 1 to 3%, they don't benefit much at all. So it's kind of a leveling up. I think that'll change. The elite, the best of the best, will, with training, they'll get beyond what any human can do now. We're not there yet. But the AI by itself doesn't get there. It gets there with the best of the best humans. They leverage together, and that's how NVIDIA and people like that are developing these chips. It's the top people working with the best AI. Molly, what do you got?
Well, that statement gives me a great deal of comfort, because I can teach everyone in this room how to read a chest x-ray or a bone x-ray in a matter of time. I cannot teach them how to ask the right question, and that's where it starts. Can you ask the right question? Why are you here, and what happened then? Thank you.
We've got some more
I
questions.
have somebody over here.
You had your hand up, right? Okay, you'll be next.
Dr. Bratton, do you see
AI being able to use to take medicines to the next level where chemotherapy agents work better but lessen the side effect profiles?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. As a matter of fact, this morning I just submitted a proposal related to that. It's to optimize the oncology, the therapies by using AI, right? And that's similar to the point I made for the cognitive monitoring. It's leveraging the multiple sources of the patient clinical information, because everybody is different. We cannot just use apply the same guidelines to everybody. I think the key is to be able to leverage AI to come up with a personalized treatment plan that can maximize the therapy outcome but minimize the downside. So that's what we've been working on. I think you're spot on with that question. Yeah.
I can add a little bit onto what you're saying in that respect from a clinical perspective. Cancer treatment is very, very complicated. And now I think the information that is being derived from tumor cells themselves, genetic lines, DNA, various chemicals the tumor either gives off or responds to, is going to overwhelm the human brain. How can one doctor or even a group of doctors assimilate all that information to come up with the best treatment plan? And this is what we need. We need computerization to look at all these factors and discern a pattern or a treatment strategy which is the best for that individual. Our brain capacity, we're developing information and data that we just can barely handle anymore as a human. I think probably one of the most complicated fields is oncology.
Yeah, that's very well said. So that's an example of using AI to reduce the cognitive load of physicians. Another potential advantages is to communicate the different treatment scenarios to the patients. Imagine you're present different scenario patients, and oncologists can try different plans, and then the AI can generate the potential outcomes based on the specific patient's information. And I think that will help make this treatment plan more transparent to the patient, right? Patient feels that they can play a more significant role in deciding what kind of plan they should go with.
Hi, this is more a question for some of us. You mentioned 3.5, and then you mentioned ChatGPT 4.5. Under what circumstances do you recommend each? And another thing that you...
Nobody uses 3.5, and it's not even on the market.
Okay.
It's 2 years old. It's archaic.
Okay, well, and you also said there was an additional charge for 4.5?
Yeah, there is so far. Yeah, they're letting it out in draft. And by additional charge, I mean you're going to have to pay $25 a month. You know what AI used to cost when I was doing it in law firms? It'd be $25,000 or $250,000 a month. So I mean, this blows my mind. That's why I'm so enthusiastic. I know in the old days what it used to cost to use AI in the law, and now to me it's like free because it's only a few $1,000s.
And my last question, I heard you mention once upon a time how valuable you thought this would be for senior citizens. Can you give an example of what you mean for someone like me?
Well, I mean, I love the multimodal cognitive evaluations for early treatment. I mean, is this natural slippage in my mind that I have trouble with names, or do I need to get in a treatment program right away? I'm hypothetical here, but we're all facing that. You guys comment on that?
So the one thing I never liked as a physician was Google, Dr. Google. Because there's so much trash on the internet. There really is. Like, you got to know where to look. Sometimes you're overwhelmed with ads and all kinds of nonsense. And patients come in having diagnosed themselves, and they're way off, but then you have to argue with them about that. I encourage my patients to go on ChatGPT because they're going to get real information. And again, if they ask the right questions, they're basically going to come into me for confirmation of what they read. And it really, in a lot of situations, has made my job easier. So this is a great leap forward. And in fact, a lot of times I just want some simple answer, and I don't want to waste my time going on Google trying to find something. I'll ask ChatGPT. Boom, it'll tell me right away. Here's the phone number for that place you're looking for. I mean, just something really simple. And speaking of ChatGPT, you can start with the free one, and what'll happen is very quickly it'll say, you've run out of how many questions you can ask me or how many pictures you can generate. So there's like this, it's almost like a teaser, and then you pay the full freight, which isn't so bad anymore, and then it just opens up all the sort of things you can do.
Professor, you had a comment?
Yeah, I think I encourage you to start out with a free version, just to get a sense of how it works, and then go from there. The more you use it, it actually does the online learning. It learns from your prompts, your questions, and they trying to it will get better and better. So I definitely encourage you, play around with it and use it to your benefit. Ask questions. They give, as Dr. Castro mentioned, it gave more specific answers than when Googling.
We have time for like one more question?
Oh, God.
What?
We have two.
Two. All right. How can I say no to my wife? Jeez.
I have a question. So much of the research in the universities and the labs is bankrolled by the federal government. Now, my understanding is 100% of those grants are being withdrawn. Is that true? What are you feeling? And also the newspaper is filled with all the wonderful scientists and professors being fired. So could you give some kind of feeling of the future?
Frankly, the future is uncertain. With what's going on with the federal government, every day, something comes out. I think things change by minutes. I think it is true that some of the federal government funding has been impacted by the current political climate. But I think we do have, what's good about U.S. is we do have the check balance system. Eventually, I think this check balance system will prevail. Even though at this moment, we feel like it's kind of off balance, I do feel like, this government, this country have survived many, turbulent times. We are facing a very uncertain time for scientific research, but I think that eventually the check balance will prevail, and I'm still very hopeful that these future work will be able to will still be able to carry on these advanced research. But at the moment, it is true that a lot of us have been impacted by the current political climate.
Yeah, and that's university research. I'll tell you, OpenAI has never taken a dime from the federal government. Either does Microsoft, either does Meta, Facebook, either does Anthropic. Those are the main, Google's DeepMind. Those are the main areas where AI is being developed. And they don't need the government. They got more money than the government will ever have to do research. And so I'm not worried about it. I'm worried about it for sure, but I'm not as deeply worried because private enterprise has really been driving this show, and that's why we're the leader in the world. And that's why China would love to steal our stuff, but they're not going to be able to do it. Now, is there one more question?
We can't.
Okay.
We just have one more or two? All right.
If you have to go, feel free to go, but I don't want to put off people's questions. You look like a sincere question here. Go ahead.
There is a program that is being tried out experimentally. Hasn't been put into use yet. Having AI answer patient questions when they call in, it is supposed to weed out the unnecessary calls that have to go to the doctor. How do you feel about that, and what does that do to liability?
Well, you got me on that one.
Well, liability is, that's an issue we're debating in the law, and I think you're going to have liability. That would be my favor. You can't just give bad information and not be responsible for it. Although you'll notice all of the AIs have disclaimers on it. You ask it a legal question, it'll give you the answer that says, but consult an attorney. And they say the same thing on medical advice. You ask for medical advice, they'll say, see a physician.
No, they want to use this program.
I don't know. Nobody knows about this experimental program but you. But do you want to comment on it? Go ahead.
Yeah, I could see that they would be testing something like this out to be put as kind of the a triaging type of thing through AI. And I think as long as it's supervised and it gives the same sort of advice that a human would say, in other words, okay, if your sore throat gets worse, if you get a fever above 101, if you get confused, whatever, then call us back or head to the emergency room. As long as it gives good, solid knowledge. But we're nowhere near being able to just say, all right, we're going to have a robot triage potentially life-threatening situations here. But the liability is going to be the same as a human. I mean, if one of my staff gives bad advice over the phone and a patient dies that night, we're liable, so to speak.
You can't blame it on the AI. The lawyers have already tried that and failed.
Can we give this?
Yes,
more?
go ahead.
You brought it up in the last minute, but you focused almost extensively on ChatGPT, but there's 4 or 5 other people developing huge large language models. So I just wanted to make sure people understood it isn't just one choice.
No, not at all. There's quite a few, and they're all U.S. companies, but they all depend on international parts and international trade and cooperation. We don't have all the stuff ourselves. Taiwan is indispensable, which is why the protection of Taiwan is very important to AI development, things like that. No, ChatGPT is the one I keep up with. Most everybody thinks they're the clear leader in language analysis, and that's my deal. I'm a language guy, I'm a lawyer, but no, I've heard, that DeepMind is better in medical things and research, so that's why I brought them in. I'm really more of a language fellow. Have we got everybody's urgent question? So, I want to thank number one, our great panelists here. And I want to thank all of you for coming out here. You really impressed me. Please join me in the Monday, the second Monday of the month. The next one is April 14th. I would like us to have to be out of the library and into this big room because I want to get everybody to try it. If you come, I'll show you how. Some of you are not interested, but I want you to try it and see for yourself. So thanks for coming, everybody.
That was really good. Excellent. Thank you so much.
inside Mason is not going to be pleasant because they're worried about getting to the all the time. Let's get on with it. So the patient physician interaction right now is not very good. Thank you for your time. Will it be better with AI? Well, you're not paying a physician salary. You're going to spend more time, like you said, thinking you would have a clinic where the doctor's short tempered and just frustrated and stressed out. So I honestly think it would be better experience. Ralph showed my wife these average ones are very human. Look at my name. Well, I have trouble remembering. I've actually really Joaquin Phoenix and Olsen Rupp. West Block, one of his key another called Ex Machina, where the guy who's there on this island is experimenting. He knows that this individual is a robot. They're close enough to that. And so I programmed this really dealing with what's all right, I gotta be somewhere. Actually, you're welcome. Oh, I'm looking at that. I thought it was 220. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Listening. Where are you going?